Good morning, children. This is your SST class, and my name is Ashwara Singh, and I'll teach you SST in class 6. Till class 5, you have studied SST in a combined way. But from class 6, you have to study the social studies in 3 categorization. Like first is history, second geography, and third is civics. Today we will discuss the chapter 1 of history. Yes. Have you ever wondered in an ancient time what did the people eat? What kinds of houses they live in? What kinds of clothes they wear? There are many questions in your mind. And these all questions can be answerable through the history, through the study of history. Yes. The first topic is why study history. Why we will study? What is the need? Why study history? You can see, if you will look closely to the word history, you will see one word is a story in that. One word is hidden in that. What? Story. Yes. Story means, yes. The history is just is the story of the people who lived in earlier times. Now the question, why study history? As history is made up of events that occurred in the past, then what is the need to study the events that occurred in the past? What is the need of study the history? Yes. Sitting in a history period, you must wonder this question. History teaches us about the past. What does history teach? History teaches us about the past. Yes. The study of the past is important. Why? What is the need to study the past? The story of past is important to understand the present. If we want to know our present, how did it come, what are the things which are responsible for today's world, we must study the history. The study of the past is important to understand the present. Since history is a continuous story, of one event leading to the another, the present cannot be understood without understanding the past. To know and fully understand the world we live, we have to be aware of the past. Okay. Now come to the second topic, time frame in history. The second topic is time frame in history. How did we divide the time during history period? Yes, history is generally divided into 3 categories. Generally, we divide the dates, time period in 3 categories. First is prehistory. You can write also prehistory. Second is proto-history. And third is history. We will discuss one by one. Okay. First is prehistory. The prehistoric period is the time when writing had not been invented. There was no written script in that time. Okay. This time, prehistoric, is the periodic time in which there was no written things were available. Okay. That time the writing was not invented that time. So how could we know about those times? Yes. Hence there are no written records in that time. Our knowledge of prehistoric time is entirely based on archaeology. Through archaeology, this is a new word for you. This archaeology means to is the study of human activity. Is the study of human activity through the analysis of material which have dig out from the earth. To understand the prehistoric period, Archaeologists who study the archaeological material. Archaeologists take deep into the ground and dig out the remains and study about that time. Dig out the remains of the past. These physical remains such as pots, jewelry, tools, coins and bones can help them to know about the past. These archaeological remains which have dig out from the earth is helpful in studying the in the prehistoric time. Okay, the prehistoric period is the time when there was no written records. Hence, these archaeological remains are helpful in studying the prehistoric time. Now, the second one, the proto-history. That time, the proto-historic period is a time for which we have written records, but very few in numbers. Very few. However, they are very few and still cannot be read. Still, it cannot be read by any archaeologist. So, archaeological source are the main source of this time also. So, the archaeological source like this, the prehistoric period, this period is also studied through the archaeological remains. Okay. So, archaeological source are the main source of information of this period also. An example of this period is Indus Valley Civilization. You must have heard about that. Now, how to study archaeologists, how they study about the, you can see in this picture, how the archaeologist fitting pieces of pottery during excavation. Excavation is digging out the materials deep inside the earth. Okay, you can see over here this archaeologist fitting together pieces of pottery found during the excavation. Okay. Now come to the history period. The time period after the invention of writing. Okay. The time period after the invention of writing is known as the history. That time we have many written records of that time. And then it is easy for us to find out the things about this time history. Early writing was done on rocks. It was done not like the paper. The paper was not invented that time. So early writing was done on rocks, pillars, copper plates, clay tablets, palm leaves and on the bark of trees. Over the years, many of these evidence have been destroyed. Many of the evidence have been destroyed, but the ones that remain are very helpful, are very important for the information, the source of information of history time. Now, dates in history. The next is the date in history. This is the time period which we have framed to study about the past, prehistoric period, protohistoric period and history period. Okay, understood? Now, the second topic is time frame, dates in history. How could we write the dates in history? You can write these topics in your copy. Dates in history. Yes. Dates in history are expressed in BC and AD. We generally write the dates in BC and AD. But nowadays, many historians, they generally write BC as BCE and AD as CE. BCE and C. Earlier it was used BC and AD, but nowadays we are using BCE and CE. BCE stand for before the common era. BCE stand for before the common era. And CE is stand for common era, the common era. Okay. Now, how could we express this thing? BCE Actually, this BCE dates are counted backward. As we counting, the backward counting is followed in BCE. Like 100 BCE, then 99 BCE, then 98 BCE, like this. See, 100 BCE comes before 99. Understood? 100 BCE comes before 99 and 99 BCE comes before 98. The backward counting is followed in BC. But in CE, the common era, we follow the forward counting. Like 98 CE, 99 CE, 100 CE. We just count in forward counting. Like forward counting is following in CE. BC is backward counting and CE followed by the forward counting. If you want to find out the time period between two dates, if you want to why this is important, if we want to find out the time period between two dates like if it is, suppose that I am giving you one example. Two time days, 500 BCE to 200 BCE. Find out the time period between 500 BCE to 200 BCE. We want to find out the time period between 500 BC to 200 BC. What will we do? We just subtract the smaller date from the larger one. Okay, we just subtract the smaller date from the larger one. See how? 500 BCE minus 200 BC. So how many years are there between them? Between these two dates? 300 years. We have 300 years. Okay, understood? If we want to find out the time period between two dates of the same era, listen carefully. The BCE, BC, these are the common of the same era, of the same time period. If we want to find out the time period between the two dates of the same era, then we will subtract the smaller date from the bigger one. Okay, clear? In the same way, if we change here the era like 500 CE to 200 CE, the same process we will follow because the time period is same, the era is same, CE 500 CE to 200 CE. This time period, the era is same. We will do the same. Subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. Now 300 years. But suppose if there are two different era, if we have to find the time period between two different era, BC and C, how could we find? C. If it is 500 BCE to 200 CE. See, this is different. BCE before the common era and CE common era. If we have to find the time period between these two dates of the different era, they are the different era. So how could we find the answer? We just add them. Add both the dates, we will find the answer. 500, 200. The time period is 700 years. This is the answer. If the time period, if there are two dates of different time periods, if there are two dates of different era and we have to find the time period between them, what will we do? We just add both the dates of different era. 500 plus 200, 700. Then answer is 700 years is the time period between 500 BC to 200 CE. Now it is easy for you to find out the time period between the same between the same era and between the two different era. It will be easy for you. If I give you one question, there is a incidents given in your book. Find out the Kalinga war between Emperor Ashoka and the King of Kalinga. It was war between the Ashoka and the who was the king of Kalinga, was fought in 261 BC. 201 BC. Then how many years back it was fought? How could we find? Actually, this is the CE common area. We are in 2020. This is C. Okay, and we have to find it 261. We have to find out the 261 BCE. We have to find out the time period from 261 BC to 2020 CE. So what I have taught you, we just add them. Then you add this. How many years are between them? 6 to 8 to 2. Yes, this much years is the time period between these two. This years back, the Kalinga War was fought. Now, have you understood? Now come to the next topic, the geographical framework. Geographical frame. What do you mean by geography? I told you that our history is divided in 3 categories from class 6. History is the study of past. Geographical is the study of environment and humans. You just study about the geographical patterns, the physical patterns of the earth and the environment. So the geographical framework. The second topic is geographical framework. It is very important for India, the geographical framework. As you know, geography has played an important role in the history of India. How it has played an important role. As you know, our India is has a diverse land features. You must have read in class 4 or 5 how in India we have desert also, plateaus also, river valleys, plains, mountains. They are different. We have different physical features, geographical feature. We can say the geographical features. So, geography play an important role in the history of India. How? As you know, the northern eastern. This is the rough sketch. You can see the northern east extent of India is just covered with what? Himalayan mountains. This is Himalayan mountains. These Himalayan mountains act as a barrier. These Himalayan mountains act as a barrier to the Central Asia. This is Central Asia. The part of above the northern side of the India is Central Asia. It acts as a barrier. Some passes are there through the river valleys. Passes are also between the road between the valley, between the low valley between the mountains to these passes. These mountain passes act as the routes for traders, merchants, scholars. They just came from the other countries through these routes, these passes in the Himalayan mountains. Yes, the Himalayan mountains in the north act as a natural barrier between India and Central Asia. The passes in these mountains have acted as routes of contact in ancient times. People, soldiers, merchants, traders, travelers, scholars and others have often crossed these passes and traveled from one place to the another. Through these passes, they travel from one place to another. They have brought new ideas, customs, habits, and that have made our culture richer. These people coming from different countries, they have different cultures. They are moving from one place to another, and they have brought up new ideas, custom, and that's why our culture become richer. Okay. Now, why did people travel from one place to another? For trading, because that time there was not settlement type of things, because people generally are nomadic people. They move from one place to another place. There was no concept of settlement that time, but slowly the settlement has occurred. How? See. Yes, the Indus and the Ganga plains are very fertile. We have in India we have 2 main rivers, 2 or 3, Indus, Ganga and Narmada in the southern part. So the Ganga, the valleys of Ganga, Indus and the Narmada are very fertile regions. So These river valleys were areas where people settled first, and these are the area near the river valleys were the areas where the people settled first. Why they have settled near the river valleys? There are three reasons behind that. Why the people first settled near the river valleys. First reason is river provide sufficient water for their use. Rivers provide, you can write, rivers provide sufficient water. The first thing for the life of the provide sufficient water for all their needs. All their needs are domestic use, agriculture. Agriculture for all their needs. Okay, river provides sufficient water for all their needs. The first reason is behind that. They can get water easily if they settle there. They can get water easily for all their domestic uses as well as agriculture purpose. The land near the river was very fertile. People could grow crop there. The land near the river was very fertile. So people could grow crops. They can do agriculture activities. They can use the river water for their agriculture productions, and it is easy for them to do the agriculture. The third is rivers served as a means of transport. As we know, there was no roads or railway networks in the ancient times. Generally, people use the small boats made up of wood, rafts, small boats. So the rivers served as a means of transport to go from one place to another place. Okay. The third reason is to for the settlement near the, especially near the river valleys, is the river served as means of transport. These are the three reasons which help early people to settle near the rivers. The first settlement was done near the river valleys because of these reasons. What are the reasons? Sufficient water they get, anything. The land is very fertile. The river served as a means of transport. These are the reasons for that. You can write in your notebook also. Come to the also the geographical framework. The geography of India also determine the development of any place. Why? Because the conditions are very favorable for their living, and if the conditions are favorable, the area near the river valleys are densely populated. But if the like mountains, hilly area, desert area, the population is very thinly populated. Why they are thinly populated? Because the unfavorable climate. But here the climate, where the climate is favorable, we can see the densely populated area over there. And the culture that develops there is not where the thinly populated was not so much affected by the external influence. Okay, but on the other hand, areas where the environment is favorable are densely populated, and they are so much influenced because many people visited that place because of the favorable climate. And where the climate is not so much favorable, very few people visit that places, and they are not so much influenced by the external influence. Okay, how we have seen how the geography play an important role in the history of India, how it affects the culture of any place. Now the next topic is sources of history. How could we know about the sources of history? We have, as we have discussed, we have the archaeological sources. Now, how do we find about something that is happened a long before? We learn about it from the remains which people of that time have left behind. Through the remains which they have left, okay, through that materials we just find out the things. Archaeologists and historians, they archaeologists and historians study these remains and tell us what might happen during that time. They study the materials and tell us what might happen in that times. The work of an archaeologist and a historian is similar to that of a detective. This detective find out any mystery. They just find out any mystery. They just study the clues which they get. Study the clues and solve any mystery. In the same way, archaeologists and historians study the clues. Which kind of clues? That the remains which they find deep inside the earth. From they studied those materials and solved the mystery of the past. From these, they slowly put together an history of that period. These clues are the sources of history. These sources can be divided into two types. The sources is divided into two types, archaeological and literary. The sources is divided into two categories, archaeological sources and literary sources. Literary, which is written sources, and archaeological. Yes, the sources is divided into two parts, archaeological sources and literary. We have two kinds of sources through which we study about the past, the archaeological sources and literary sources. We will discuss one by one. The first, okay, we will discuss the first, archaeological sources. Yes, inscription. Archaeological sources are direct evidence. These are the direct evidence. Why they are the direct evidence? We just dig out them from the earth, and they cannot be changed or altered by humans. They can't be changed. We can't change them and altered by humans. There are four types. Inscriptions. They also divided into four types. Inscriptions. Okay. The second is monuments. Monuments also. Third is artifacts. And fourth is coins. How many kinds of archaeological sources? Inscriptions, monuments, artifacts and coins. These are the archaeological sources. First one is inscription. What is inscription? Written records engraved on rocks, cave walls, metal pillars, walls of temples and palaces, or on clay and copper tablets are called inscription. Whatever written things which have been created that time on the walls, cave walls, pillars, tablets, clay and copper tablets, walls, metal pillars. What is the written records are known as, all the written records which are engraved on these things are known as inscriptions. Very often kings got the important events in their region and their achievements inscribed so that people could read them. People, what they do, kings of that time, whenever they got any victory, they just prescribed all the things, engraved all their things, victory, on such things like pillars, clay tablets, so that people could read them and remember them. Instead, Emperor Ashoka, one example is there. Emperor Ashoka and the Mauryan dynasty put up a large number of inscriptions in different parts of his empire. We know so much about him largely due to these inscriptions. We know so much about the Emperor Ashoka due to these inscriptions which we find in the form of pillars, coins. So through that we just know about a large number of things about their dynasty. Now come to the monuments. What do you mean by the monuments? Buildings of historical importance are called monuments. Buildings of that time, the history during that reason. Buildings of historical importance are monuments. They tell us about the period in which they were built. They inform us about the social life, religious life, religious belief, the culture, knowledge of science, and the people of the period in which the monuments were built. Temple, forts, palaces, stupas and monasteries make the past come alive. Whenever you visit any temples, you just see the sculpture over there. Many things are written, many paintings you can see on them, through which you can assume of the lifestyle of people of that time. So Temples also, forts, kile, palaces, stupas. These all are very helpful in the study of past. Now artifacts are what? The object that human made in the past. The object which was made by the humans who lived in the past, like pots, jewelry, ornaments, metal objects, weapons are called artifacts. The object that human made in the past, such as pottery, tools, ornaments, metal objects, jewelry, weapons are called artifacts. They are found by the archaeologists in the course of excavation. Excavation is to digging out the things from there. They give us vital clues to the past. Okay, through this, the archaeological and historian gets the clues, and they find out they just solve the mystery of the past. Okay, now the fourth one is coins. Coins are an extremely valuable sources of information, because on those coins, you can see, I will show you the coins of the history, which you can see the coins are a valuable archaeological source. The many things you can see, the something is written on the coins, the pictures are you can engraved on that, the reason, the king's picture of that time. So they tell us about the reigning period of the kings, the economy of the kingdom, the extent of a king's empire, and about trade with other realms. Coins are also throw light on the art and religion of earlier times. These are the archaeological sources through which we study about the past: the inscription, the written one, the monuments, building of those times, artifacts, the things which was made by the early human, the people of those times, and the coins. Okay, these are the archaeological sources. Now come to the literary source. Literary source. Yes, literary source. Handwritten records of the past. Handwritten records of the past in the form of books. Handwritten records of the past in the form of books are known as manuscript. Manuscript, manual, which is done by humans. Manuscript. The handwritten records in the form of books are known as manuscript. These were usually written on palm leaves and the bark of trees, because that time paper was not invented. So generally the people of those time uses leaves, barks of trees to write them. Then due to their fragile nature, many manuscripts have been destroyed. Many of, because they are not permanent form, they are not in the permanent form, they can't be safely for so many, can't be safe for so many years. So many of them have been destroyed. The ones which have left, those have survived, have helped us to know more about the past. Literary source may be divided into two types. The literary source may be divided into two types. The first is religious, and the second one is secular literature. Religious literature and the secular literature. As you can assume from the name only, religious literature. The literature which deals with any particular religion, which tells about the religion. Okay, writing which deal with the religion are called religious literature. Writing, you can write writing which deal with religion. Religious literature is writing which deal with religion. And this opposite, the secular literature, writing which do not deal with the religion. Okay, writing which deal with the religion is called religious literature. We have so many religious literature. The Vedas, for example, you can write Vedas, Ramayana, we have Mahabharata, okay, Puranas, Bhagavad Gita. These are the religious literature of that time. Now the secular literature, writing which are not religious are called secular literature. Writing, you can write writing which are not religious, Writing which are not religious are secular literature. Which kind of literature come under this category? These include stories, poems, plays, biographies of kings, accounts of foreign travelers, books on politics and science. The examples are, you can write here. Examples are, you can write like Arthashastra. Arthashastra is very important book. Arthashastra, which is written by Kautilya. Arthashastra, Kautilya. The Indica by Megasthenes. Indica. Megasthenes. You will discuss it later. We will read about these books in the chapters, in the next chapters. As is important, poems of Kalidas. These are the secular literature. The accounts of Fa-Hen and Sang and the Sangam literature are some example of secular literature written during these times. So we have seen so many sources through which we study the past, the archaeological sources and literary sources. Archaeological sources we have discussed: inscription, monuments, artifacts, coins, and the religious literary sources we have the writing forms, the form of book, religious and the secular. Religious, which deal with the religion, and writing which not deal with the religion, is secular. Now in the next chapter we will study about the early humans. Thank you, children.